In this video, I'd like to share with you how you can feel better. I know, a very generalized question, remark. I just think it's so foundational in terms of how to be a better person, obviously how to feel better in our lives, but really also how to be better and feel better for your families, for your community, for your kids who might be struggling right now, okay? So let's get started. So first thing is, there's a lot that you can do to feel better just doing self-care. This is kind of the obvious thing here, but if you stick around for the rest of this video, I'm going to share some insights from living as a monk for the last 8 years and on a transformational path for the last 20 years about some really deep insights around how to actually feel better in any moment, okay? So here's the first thing that I just learned recently. Whenever we practice kindness towards people, serotonin gets released in the brain. Serotonin is a very helpful element that gets released in the brain that has us feel better, essentially. So I thought this was great because I noticed that whenever I'm kind to someone, I feel a bit better. And it's great to see that this is reflected in neurology. Yeah. So very simple, very accessible thing for us to use is just being kind to others. And if you can extend that kindness to yourself in a way that you can really feel it, it can make a difference. All right. So foundationally, practice being kind, even if you're angry, even if you're irritable. One of the best ways I've found to shift whenever I'm irritable or whenever I'm feeling kind of funky is to do something for someone else. It could be as simple as like yesterday I was at the grocery store and I was feeling pretty frumpy actually. And I just had this nice interaction with this man. It lasted 3 seconds. He said, "Have a great day." And I was like, "Wow, thank you very much. I will." And he was kind of like, "Oh." And I was like, "Yeah, oh." So be kind regardless of the circumstance. That's a great way to just feel better. Give what you want to receive. I think the Beatles said that in one of their earlier songs, right? All right. So here's an insight that I learned after 17 years of being on a spiritual path. This is number 2. Accept how we feel. Now, let's take this a little bit deeper. It's not just superficially like, I feel like, whatever. But actually accept how we're feeling. I'll give you an example from last night. Last night, it was a Friday night here in Naples, Florida. I'm a monk. I don't really go out. So I was just feeling funky. There was no reason. Everything's going great in my life. I live a wonderful life. Everything's going amazing. But I was just feeling funky and I couldn't really do anything to have myself feel differently. And this happens to me pretty regularly, right? I'll just go through these kind of lows where I don't really understand it. There's not really an external reason why. I live a pretty darn healthy lifestyle. I'm a vegetarian. I don't do drugs or alcohol. Haven't done them for years. I'm celibate. I drink smoothies and fresh juices every day. I drink one meal of essentially beans and rice every day with some cooked vegetable. I cold plunge. I do yoga come on. So if I'm not feeling great every second of every day, it doesn't mean that I'm doing something wrong per se. And the same is true for you. Maybe you have some different habits. Enjoy some of the pleasantries of life a little bit more than I do. And so if you're feeling funky, it's okay. It doesn't mean necessarily that you're depressed. It might mean that you have more significant issues, but just give yourself the grace of accepting how you feel. Now, here's what I did last night. What I do every time I noticed that I have an experience like this. Okay, I got it. I'm feeling kind of funky. I realize it. Not so much there's anything I can really do about it. One, I'll share it with someone. I'll just be like, I don't think there's anything to do. And here's a few things. One, I try to limit the impact that I have on others while also remaining authentic to myself, right? So I'm not putting on a plastic smile and pretending like everything's okay, but I'm also not dragging everyone down around me, right? In our path, we call it retaining neutrality, finding the middle path, and finding a way to be with ourselves in a way that we don't negatively impact the world around us or bring us down. We're still contributing, and yet we retain a degree of authenticity. It's like we're not feeding the negativity or the frumpiness, as I say, inside of ourselves, and we're also not gripping or throttling to get to some other place. There's this very sweet spot right in the middle that has to do with acceptance. And what it looks like for me, and what it could look like for you, is just taking a breath and being how we are. Being how we are at the same time of having a vision of how we want to be, right? So if I want to feel more peaceful, if I want to feel more joy, if I want to feel more self-acceptance, choose to activate those qualities inside of you through accepting how you are right now. So however you are as you're watching this video, or you're listening to it as you're walking around, I imagine, which is great. Just practice taking a deep breath and accepting how you're feeling right now. You might feel great. You might feel motivated. You might not feel great. You might feel desperate. You might feel worried. Just accept it. And the greatest access to accepting things, emotions as commodities, that I've found is the breath. I don't mean a deep breath, a deep, meaningful, sincere breath that you can take right now. Right? Something just like I did, naturally, to guide you. So the first thing that we do when we want to feel better is be kind. One thing that we can do. Yeah. The biggest thing, the most foundational thing that I have done and that I teach from 20 years of leading this stuff, of teaching this stuff, and of practicing this stuff. And I've studied all kinds of different routes of psychology, in addition to many different spiritual traditions, and have immersed myself in the spiritual tradition that I'm in right now, the path of brahmacharya, that's rooted in India. And the whole key to this is acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean that I accept that I'm going to feel this way forever. It doesn't mean that I accept external circumstances to remain the way they are and not take action. I'll get to that in a moment. It means that I accept the current experience that I'm having. It reminds me of this concept in psychology called the paradoxical theory of change, which says that we can't feel some other way than we're feeling right now until we accept how we are feeling now. Meaning if we accept how we're feeling now, then we can change. But we can't change until we accept this current experience. It's a paradox, right? So practice this for yourself. As I'm speaking with you, as I'm going through the third step, make some space within yourself to accept how you're feeling. Now, it's easy to accept how you're feeling when we're feeling stoked or joyful or connected or all those things, right? If you're feeling down, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling hopeless, you're feeling anxious, there's a lot that you can do to look at like the why behind it. But foundationally, when we need to shift and we need to feel better for others in our lives, perhaps even most importantly for ourselves, accept. Okay? All right, I'll close my soapbox on acceptance and move to the third thing to do, the third action to take to feel better, and that is namely taking action. Now, what I just talked about, practicing acceptance, is actually taking action. Every thought, feeling, and action that we take is an action. Thoughts are actions. Feelings are actions. They don't feel like we have dominion over them. They don't feel like we can create them or that we can control them in the beginning of a transformational path. But I assure you, they are commodities. They are vessels that we can fill with our intent, meaning especially thoughts and feelings. Actions are pretty obvious. We can, and I can do this, create feelings and create thoughts. Because the more conscious that we become of how we think and how we feel, we start to build a momentum of creation. Then, when we become clear about what our intent is, then we can fuel those thoughts and feelings with our intent. Now, this is practice. There's a lot of other videos that I've created about this out there. There's some great content in the world of Think and Grow Rich. If you haven't read that book, yes, initially was about becoming wealthy, but it's also really about getting anything that you want in your life, which I practice and am achieving every day, right? So this third step of feeling better is taking some action. We can't just expect to feel better and do what we've always done. We can't expect to feel differently and do the same things that we have always done in our lives, right? So we need to take some kind of inspired action or do things that we know that work for us, right? One of the ways that I've expanded, that I've lived my life, and why I'm always building on more fulfillment in my life, is I find things that really work for me and then I build upon them, right? So I realized that I loved taking, loved and not loved taking cold showers in the morning, but I loved the way that I felt afterwards. I saved a bunch of my money together and I bought this cold plunge. So now I do a 3-minute cold plunge in 40-degree Fahrenheit water every morning. It's very intense. I look at the pool for a split second before I get in, and I notice I'm like, this is going to be painful. It's painful. It was painful for about 2 minutes in the beginning, and now it's painful, or uncomfortable, I should say, for about 20 seconds. And I have this ecstatic experience just from doing cold plunges and taking a hot shower afterwards, doing some exercise, right? It's a little thing. I'm not dependent upon it to feel better, but it really helps. I mean, it's really good for my body too. So that's just one thing, right? Take an action and build upon them in a routine for yourself. And then I have some people in my life who are have a lot more variety in their lives than I do. And I do things that they like to do, and I shake it up a bit, right? So taking action. So let's go over these, okay? One more quick little summary. It's pretty simple, but I wanted to give you this because I was feeling it for myself, and I've heard some people really enjoy this content. So number 1, be kind to yourself and be kind to others, and especially for the impact that it has on the brain, the positive impact it has on the brain. 2, the world and the practice of acceptance, accepting how we feel. How when we accept how we feel, it frees up our ability to feel other ways, better ways, we could even say. And thirdly, take action in your life. Notice what you feel inspired to do and constantly work on expanding your foundation of self-care day in and day out. Okay? I'm with you in this path of transformation, and all my best.